What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. This is Josh, one of your Linode developer advocates, and today I wanted to show you guys how to synchronize your files between multiple computers using Syncthing on Linode. So sit back, relax, and follow along with this video, and I'll show you guys how to get this up and running in no time. Now, before we get started, I want to cover exactly what Syncthing is. Syncthing is an application that lets you synchronize your files across multiple devices, which means that the creation and modification and deletion of files on one machine will be automatically replicated to the other devices that you have set up using Syncthing. Now, on their website, they state, "We believe your data is your data alone, and you deserve to choose where it is stored. Therefore, Syncthing does not upload your data to the cloud, but exchanges your data across your machines as soon as they are online at the same time." So now that you know what Syncthing is all about, let's hop over and go through the install step by step. So the first thing you're going to need is a Linode account, which is very easy to set up. If you don't have one set up yet, just check down in the description of this video for a link to get started. The sign up is free, and you will also receive a $100 credit for the first 60 days after your account is created. Now, once you have your account set up, all you have to do is simply log in to Linode, and you will be greeted with the main dashboard for your Linode account. Now, as you can see, I already have some Linode set up, and I also have servers set up for this demonstration. And you'll notice one that says Sync 1 as well as Sync 2. These are the two servers that I will use in order to synchronize my files back and forth between both of these servers. And they're pretty much pre-configured, so I won't walk you guys through the full process, but I at least wanted to get you guys some information on how to create a Linode before I get started. So all you have to do is simply click create Linode and then go through and select all of the criteria in order to set the server up the way you want it. You have options to choose your distribution, as well as the region, as well as your Linode plan. And this is all based on your criteria, what you actually select when you go through this process of creating your Linode. And also over here on the left hand side, if we click on Marketplace, there are some pre-configured servers that are provided by Linode, which you can go through and select based on your needs. For instance, you can set up a WordPress server or a Nextcloud, cPanel. And they have a whole bunch of pre-configured servers in here. So I recommend you guys check this out, because this will save you some time when setting up your Linode for whatever purpose that you need it for. Now let's go back over to my Linodes right fast and go down and get started with installing Syncthing. And both of these servers are using Ubuntu 20.04, which is the current LTS, meaning long-term support. And in order to get started, we need the IP address, because I will use SSH in order to log in and install everything we need to get Syncthing up and running in no time. So let's grab our IP address and switch over to our terminal so we can log in. Okay, so I'm logged into both servers using SSH. Now, for one, this is Sync 1. And then if we look on the other tab, this is Sync 2. And with Syncthing, you have to install the application on both servers that you plan to sync data between. So I'll go through and install Syncthing on one, and it's the exact same process to install it on Sync 2. So I'll skip that just to save time. But a couple things I did to this server in order to get it ready, I set up an account with sudo privileges named Josh. And that's pretty much all you have to do. So let's go through the install, and the first step is to actually add the PGP key in order to add the repository to Ubuntu. Now there is a version of Syncthing that's within the main Ubuntu's repository, but it's best to use the package that's stored on the maintainer's repository so you'll have the most up-to-date version of Syncthing. So let's start off by adding the PGP key, and of course all of these instructions will be down in the description of the video so you can kind of copy and paste and follow along. So let's press enter there, and that will add the PGP key to the server. So let's type in our sudo password, press enter, and we didn't get any errors, so that means that command actually ran good. Now let's add the repository, which is another command. It's basically an echo command to our sources list within our Ubuntu server, and basically it's simply adding a repository to the server so we can install Syncthing from that repository. So let's press enter, and we didn't get any errors, so we're good to go. That command ran perfect. Now the next thing, we just need to run sudo apt updates, and this will refresh that newly added repository on our server. As you can see it right here. It says apt.syncthing.net. That's the actual location of the package. So now that that's refreshed, it's kind of cached on the server, we can go through and install Syncthing now by just typing sudo apt install and then Syncthing and press enter, and that'll install the latest and greatest version of Syncthing. And I'll be back when this actually finishes. Now we have Syncthing installed on the server. In order to actually use it, we need to add a systemd configuration. That way we can actually manage the application in the background, because just like most applications, a lot of them will come with a service configuration, and it'll put it in the directory that it needs in order to start the application on boot. Well, with this application, they want you to manually do it, especially on Ubuntu servers. So let me go down and show you guys how to do that now. And in order to get the service file, let me show you guys how to do it right fast. So first thing I'm gonna do is search Syncthing in my browser, and what we want to do is go to the GitHub page for it, which is down here. So we can just click on that. That'll open it up, and on the Syncthing page, GitHub page, then you want to click under Etsy, and then it's broken up by the different initialization software on whatever server you're using. Most of the time, if it's Debian, it's using systemd, but they do have other initialization applications on here like Runit, systemctl, systemd, upstart. But what we want is the systemd version, and so we can get in here and get the systemd configuration, which is what we want to use in order to start the service, enable the service, and all that good stuff. So we can click here, and that'll open up the raw version of the file. And what you want to do is just simply copy this link. That way we can download it with that same names, and it will save it on our server. So let's go back to the terminal right fast and copy this configuration down. And let's just use the wget command, and we can store it in our home directory temporarily, but we have to move it into a specific location in order to get it up and running. So as you can see, that downloaded that actual file. The name of it is Syncthing at .service, and let's ls so we can make sure it's there. It's in our home directory. Now, before we do anything with it, we need to go down and change the permissions of this file because of where it's going to be stored. It's going to be stored under the Etsy directory, which is owned by root. And what we want to do is make sure we change this file to match those permissions. So we just type sudo chown and then root and then colon root, and then we just specify that file, the Syncthing file. Boom, and press enter, and that will change the ownership of that file for us. Now that we have that ownership change, we can move the actual service file over to the proper directory so we can enable the service. So we could just type sudo mv for move, and then the Syncthing file, and where we want to move it to is etc systemd and then system, and that is the directory you want to move it to. So let's press enter, and that'll move it into that proper location. Now, in order for systemd to actually recognize the file, we have to reload the daemon. and it's a simple command. We just basically run sudo system ctl and then daemon -reload and press enter, and that'll reload the systemd daemon, and that way it'll recognize that file we just added to that location. Now that that's done, let's just go down and verify that it's recognized. We could just type sudo system ctl, and we could type status and then syncthing. And as you can see, the only thing it'll see is the resume.service, but the other one is there because it's within the file. So let's just put at Josh .service, because that's the way we want to run it. And as you can see, it's not stored but it's there. Let's press Q to quit, and let's go on and enable this thing. I'm gonna just hit the up arrow so we don't have to type the whole thing in, but let's just type enable after this and press enter, and that will enable the service. Now let's go on and start it, because all we did was enable the service. That way it'll start every time the system boots up and you actually log in as a user on the system of Josh. So let's go down and hit start, boom, and that'll start the service for us. Now let's run that status again, and this will let us know that it's actually working. And as you can see right here, it says active running. And then also, if you look up here, you'll see where it says enabled. That means that it will start every time the system boots up. Now let's press Q for quit. We have all that done, and we have Syncthing running on this one particular server. But before we can actually get to it, we have to make some more minor changes to the Syncthing configuration file, because the only way you can get to it is by typing localhost. Currently, it doesn't allow you to use the IP address to connect to it. So we have to make changes to that configuration file. So let's do that now by typing nano. And this configuration file is stored in our home directory, so we don't need to use sudo privileges in order to get to it, but sudo config and then Syncthing should have a folder in there. And then if we type config.xml, that is the configuration file that we need to edit. So if we press enter, that'll open it up for us, and I'll show you guys how to make changes to it. But all you have to do is scroll down until you actually find the IP address, which is right here. You'll see 127.0.0.1. All we have to do is change that to 0.0.0.0, and that'll accept connections from any IP address. And since we made those changes, we could just go down and save them, Control X, and then what I did was save it, press Y for save, boom, and we made changes to it. Now, in order for those changes to take effect, since we had a server already stored, we could just go back here to the command we ran earlier under status, but we're gonna run restart for the service. That way it'll recognize the changes to the configuration file that we made. So we're good to go with that. We should be able to connect to it. And before I bring up the site that you actually connect to, I'm gonna go down and set this up on the other server, and I'll be back when I'm actually done. Okay, cool. So I've went on and installed Syncthing on our second server. So let's go through the steps of actually setting up Syncthing so we can synchronize folders. Now, before I do that, I just wanted to show you guys that once you have it set up and running on the actual server, then you should see a folder created within your home directory for Syncthing. So if we type ls, you'll see that we have a sync directory now, which is super cool. It automatically creates that folder for us, and this is just mainly to get us started. And then we can do the same thing on the first server that we did, and you'll see that it does have that Syncthing folder as well there. Now, in order to connect to our servers or our Syncthing servers, we basically have to type the IP address, and then it uses port 8384. So let's switch over to the browser so we can bring up both of these servers. Okay, so I have my browser back up, and the first thing we need to do is grab the IP addresses of our servers. And I'll start with sync1. So let me go back to my main page right fast and grab that IP address for the sync1 server. And we just copy it right fast and then open up a new tab, and let's paste it in. And like I said, it has to be port 8384, and that'll get us to our Syncthing server. As you can see, first thing that will pop up is a warning, because what we did with the XML file, we opened it up to the internet, so anyone can actually get to this. So if you do this, just make sure you need to go in and modify the server by adding a password right away and not let it sit out there, because people are constantly scanning the internet for servers that are open and don't have any passwords set on them. And as you can see right there, it says danger. The Syncthing admin interface is configured to allow remote access without a password, and you don't want to do that. So let's just go to settings right fast, and all we have to do is go to GUI and then add our user accounts there. So we can name it, I'll just name it admin, and then put a password in there, and then press save, and that will save the actual password to it. As you can see now that it reconnects to it after we made those changes in there, it's asking us for the admin password, and people won't see the page, but the only thing they'll see that some application is behind there and you need a username and password to actually log into it. So let's type admin and then type in our password, and this will sign us back into the Syncthing server. So as you can see, this is the main page for Syncthing. This is the Syncthing GUI. And here on the left hand side, you'll see the folders, that's our sync folder that was in our home directory that was created. And they just do that by default just to help you out. Now let's go down and log into our second sync server so we can do the exact same thing. And then we can go down and show you guys how to set this thing up. And let's type in the port, which is 8384, press enter. That'll log us in. Let's go down and add that password on there so no one else can actually get to the server. And let's hit no there, and then hit settings, and then let's go to the GUI and add our password just like on the other server. Good to go. Boom, save. And let's refresh the server. I'm not sure why I didn't bring it up asking me to log into it, but I'm sure we made those changes properly on the server for us. Okay, boom. So we can log into the server now using our admin password and sign in. So cool. So we're logged into both servers now. This is our first one, which has that IP address, and then our second one, Sync2, which has our IP addresses. And what we want to do is sync folders in between both of those. Let's go down and add the first device. So if we click right here on the drop down, we can click show ID. And what we need to do is just copy this ID right fast. We can close it after that. And let's go over to our other Syncthing server and press add remote device. And all we have to do is paste in that code, hit save, and we could have named it. I didn't name it anything. It just named it whatever. And if we go back over to our sync one, then you'll see that it's trying to add a device. So if we hit add device, that'll go down and add that device to our server as well. So the name of it says localhost. I should have named it, which is fine. They're both called localhost, which is probably not good. It's best I put a different name on it, but as you can see, it has a different icon on it, so that distinguishes the two. But really what you want to do is add a name in there, and I apologize for not adding one, but this will work just for this demonstration so you guys can actually see it. Okay, so now that we have our remote devices set up, I wanted to show you guys how to modify the default folder so we can share between that folder on both devices. Like I said, the default folder is already there, which is that sync folder, and you can see the full path right here. So home, Josh, sync, and then if we go in and hit edit, this will bring up the sharing options. We could just share it with localhost, which is that other server. So, and then one cool feature about it, you can add a encryption password, which I'm not going to do for this demonstration. We don't need to. but I'm gonna hit save. And as you can see, it's already syncing. It's trying to sync with the other server. And as you can see, it says 95%. And what I did in the back end was created a file on one of the folders just to see if it was syncing, just to quickly get it so you guys can see that it's actually syncing. And if we go back over here to our sync 2, you'll see local host wants to share folder, default folder, with you. So all you have to do is hit share there, and that will complete the sync. Now if we go back over here, you'll see that it's up to date now. Now let's switch over to the terminal because I wanted to show you guys the file I actually created, and it was just a simple text file. So boom, let's open it up, and we can ls this sync directory. I just basically cd to that directory, and if we ls it, you'll see that we have a test.txt, and I created that file over here on the sync 1 server. And once we set up the sharing, this file actually synced over to the other server, so that file is there now. Now in order to show you guys another example, I went on and pulled up a GitHub page with a whole bunch of Ansible playbooks, and I'll clone that directory down to the sync directory, and then we can see it sync from one server to another server. So first off, let me make sure Git is installed. So let's just type sudo apt install git and press enter. And this will allow us to, and it looks like I typed that in wrong, so let's just go back and type both L's and press enter. Git, yeah, and Git is already installed, so we can just type git clone, and I already have the link copied, so let's just go on and drop it down in there right fast. Boom, that is the Ansible examples, and it's going to store it in that clone, in that sync directory. Boom. So if we ls this directory right fast, you'll see another folder in there. It says Ansible examples, and then I want to switch over before it actually finishes and see if it actually syncs. And as you can see, it quickly just popped up and it synced the data. You'll see some information on it right here, how many files, how many directories, and actually my face kind of covered up, but right next to localhost it shows that it's actually syncing. And if we look on the other side, you'll kind of see the same thing, and you can see it's listening, so listeners, discovery, and then the local state is what's important. You'll see that's 340 files as well as 239 directories, which a total of 66 megabytes, which is the exact same as over here. But being that we installed it over here, you'll see that the upload rate, was those amount of megabytes that we downloaded, since we downloaded it on sync 1. Now let's switch back over to the terminal right fast and just verify, and I'm gonna switch over to sync 2, which is that server, and then ls that directory. You'll see that this directory is there now, which is super cool. So that's essentially how it works. Now there are a whole bunch of other features that I don't have time in this video to go through, but if we open up our edit under the default folder, and we can also create other folders, but they do have a super cool option of file versioning. So right now no file versioning is on, but this is a way for you to actually look at different versions of a file. So if you update the file on one system, it'll keep a version of it depending on how you set the settings within here, which I'm not going to go through. Just read the documentation. It's super simple to follow. Like I said, everything is documented, but really all you have to do is add a new folder, and I'll walk you through the steps of actually creating a new folder, and then you just basically go through and share it with the other device. And one thing you want to do is make sure you have a directory that you want to share on a server, especially if you want to keep things standard. But that's pretty much all I want to show you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. As I stated in the intro, Syncthing is an awesome application that you can use to synchronize files, and one of those things I use it for is synchronizing websites on two different servers, two different web servers. which is very great. So whenever you make changes to one of the servers that's hosting the website, it'll automatically synchronize those files over to the other server that's also hosting a website. And then also one thing I do is synchronize important documents to another server as an offsite backup. And I mainly only use it for files that I don't want to store in the cloud, but I still want a very good backup of the files as I make changes. So please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And if you have any questions, leave comments down in the comments below. And I hope you guys have a good new year, and peace.